Hi there, I hope you're doing really good today. It's Daniel, and I'm back after 4 weeks of being out of town. And we have a lot to go through today. Actually, I believe there are five emails that we're going to reply to. And, um, and I'm going to go with the ones that are, maybe a little bit shorter in the beginning and say the ones that will take more time towards the end. So that said, let us jump right in here. And the first email we're going to look at is from Olivia, who emailed me actually 11 days ago first, and I made a reply. And that one was focused on like anxiety, and we're gonna see what the follow-up was here. So this was from 4 days ago. Hello again. Hope you're doing well. I'm in a bout of insomnia right now. I'm just so worried about tomorrow, and I freak myself out that I won't be able to sleep. I don't know how some are just able to lie down and sleep. I'm 18 and still living with my parents, and I commute to college, and I want to live in a dorm, but I'm so scared I won't be able to sleep there. I don't know what to do. I just want to be able to lie down and not worry about sleeping or not. My sister calls my sleeping thing a problem. I don't think of it like that. I just have anxiety that I cannot turn off. The first thing that came to mind as I was reading this was that if somebody knows that anxiety is the root cause of their insomnia, that it is all that like the anxiety is driving the insomnia, and there's nothing beyond that, then I can't help too much with that. I know a lot about sleep insomnia, a little bit of anxiety, but that's something that you have to talk to your doctor about, or like maybe counseling or something like that. That said, there were some things here that I think can be helpful. And first of all, I want to say this. Yeah, Olivia says, I don't know how some are just able to lie down and sleep. What happens is that when somebody has never had a problem sleeping, they have like their sleep confidence is like 100%. Like they just don't even question the fact that they're going to sleep. They know they're going to sleep, and they exert zero effort. Like they don't try anything to go to sleep. They exert zero effort. They don't try at all, and therefore they sleep. And by the way, if such a person that sleeps great has an off night where they don't, which everybody does, their sleep confidence is still not shaken. They still, they just go on to say that was weird, but they then just go back to sleeping well. That's somebody who's never had insomnia. So the point is, when you are trying to get past insomnia, the goal is to get to that place. The goal is to get to the place where you believe that you can sleep, and you don't try anything to make yourself sleep. Then if you achieve that, you've never gotten you have gotten completely past your insomnia. And the way to do that, I believe, is like all the techniques I talk about here, the cognitive behavioral therapy, kind of the mindfulness techniques, and other such other methods I talk about in on this channel. Anticipatory insomnia, when something is happening tomorrow and you're like stressed out about that, keeping you from sleeping. What should you do about that? Well, I can only go back to talking insomnia number 12, where I learned about like a really good way of doing constructive worry that I know I talked to you about, Olivia, before, but for anybody else out there, taking like 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the kind of early afternoon and just like writing down every single thing that worries you, and like try to get as much as possible out there within those 15 minutes, and then doing that every single day like an exercise, I think is a good one. Another important point is that some people, when they know they have to get up really early, they try to go to bed extra early so that they get enough time to sleep. That always backfires. If you go to sleep early just because you have something going on the next day, that's just going to put more pressure on you to try to sleep, and that creates more insomnia. So even if you have a big thing going on the following day, try to stick to the same principles. So like, don't go to bed unless you feel sleepy, and try not to pressurize yourself as much as possible. And I think the third thing that I want to mention here is, again, if anxiety is the root cause, then that's something that needs to be addressed, that I'm not an expert in at all. But I know this, that the more you kind of accommodate insomnia, the stronger it gets. For example, if somebody enjoys social activities in the evening and then decides to cancel activities because they want to make sure they have enough time to sleep, that is a big give towards insomnia. That's kind of acknowledging that insomnia has a big influence on your life, and the more you accommodate, the stronger it gets. So I'm thinking about, being worried about not being able to sleep in the dorm room, etc. Again, if the anxiety is the driving force, that's something you have to explore with a professional. Uh, but but just from a pure insomnia standpoint, and this is general advice again, um, the more you kind of accommodate insomnia, the stronger it gets. Hope this is helpful. And I didn't say this in the beginning, but I should have said this in the beginning. But for all these replies I'm doing today, nothing here is medical advice. You have to decide yourself if what I'm saying here makes sense and is something that you should be, attempting or trying or considering. So I hope that was helpful, Olivia. And that said, we'll move on to another email. This came in 3 days ago. This is from Frank. And I want to say right off the bat that just reading this made me actually super, super happy. And you'll see why. So, by the way, Frank, I've made a couple of, I think 2 podcast replies to Frank. So you can check those out for background. That said, let's jump right in here. So Frank writes 3 days ago, "Thank you very much for the video. I have watched it with great interest, and I understand that I need to take the long-term view in order to address my insomnia. I know that on average, I am able to sleep better, that I'm not so anxious about my sleep, that I'm way more active than I was 8 weeks ago. In short, my life is better all around since I began to use CBTi. The bad nights still upset me, but I understand that I need to shift my attention away from them and focus on the real progress that I have made so far." This paragraph is like, made me like really, really happy. We can hear here that Frank is doing everything correct. Like patience, he's patient. He expresses that he's trying to be positive despite everything that happens, and he's looking back and seeing that he has actually made progress, which sometimes people forget. Sometimes people just like 3-4 weeks into trying like these CBTi techniques almost forget that they slept really, really terrible like a couple of weeks ago. So focusing on that is super helpful. I do believe that the more we focus on the positive things, like the better things get. So really, really happy to read that. Now let's continue reading here. Here's my question. I continue to wake up several times every night. Some nights I can go back to sleep very easily. Some nights it takes me up to 2 hours to fall asleep in spite of stimulus control. And for anyone who doesn't know what stimulus control means, that basically means, getting out of the bed when you can't sleep and going back to bed only when you feel sleepy again. There's a lot more to stimulus control than that, but that's kind of the basics of it. These are the real bad nights. No amount of stimulus control or mindfulness seems to control my arousal. For instance, I had a perfect day yesterday. I suffered no abdominal discomfort all day. I had a relaxing evening and all seemed well. I went to bed when I began to fall asleep while standing up. Yet, I woke up 30 minutes after falling asleep and had to get up 3 times. Tried different activities while out of bed, reading, stretches, deep breathing, until finally I fell asleep around 2 hours from the time I had initially gone to bed. Well, what I describe as abdominal discomfort may be what people refer to as knots in the stomach. It's definitely stress and anxiety related. I can spend entire days when I have no symptoms at all, and I cannot always bring it under control. When I wake up feeling this abdominal discomfort, that is when I have real difficulty falling asleep again. I will continue to work on mindfulness during the day. I'll keep up my worry journal and remain active. I just cannot understand why the abdominal discomfort remains so strong, even on days when I feel well and everything seems to be going my way. Also, I would gladly work with a CBTi therapist locally, but I can't find anybody I trust. The one I tried was fixated on sleep hygiene and had no real idea what the therapy is all about. As I later found out, my current self-directed method may be imperfect, but at least does not frustrate me as much as my last therapist did. All right, a lot of things that are encouraging here, and a lot to talk about, or a number of things to talk about. So, first of all, starting trying, I like, in insomnia, can feel like really hopeless, lonely, etc. So I always try to bring out everything that's positive. And one thing is this: I feel, Frank, you have insight. Like these knots in the stomach, definitely stress and anxiety related, you say. that is big. Like a lot of people just don't understand why they have all these weird stuff, like the knots in the stomach, the tingling, um, the kind of cramps, the twitches, and things like that. And the first step towards like getting better is to understand that those, generally speaking, are signs of hyperarousal. When the mind is kind of racing and going in turbo mode and things like that, you are like hyper aware. And you pick up on things that you normally wouldn't even notice. And then when you pick up on those, they tend to get worse. Knots in the stomach is one example here. Now, going back to the question here, Frank is saying, I continue to wake up several times at night. Some nights I can go back to sleep easily. Sometimes it takes me 2 hours. I think, to be quite honest here, the best approach is an acceptance approach. It's really hard to do, but the fact is, I think any alternative is worse. Meaning the following: that trying to figure out why one is waking up several times leads to kind of more preoccupation and thinking and speculating and worrying, and that in itself, it leads to more insomnia. Trying to make oneself sleep, and I don't, Frank, you may not be saying this at all, but just for complete clarity, when you leave the bed because you can't sleep, and if somebody is, let's say, reading, stretching, or doing deep breathing techniques with the purpose of make them sleep, like if you're reading or stretching or relaxing or meditating, and the intent is for that to make you sleep, it's going to backfire, because anything we do with the attempt of making ourselves sleep just makes us kind of like monitor how that's working, and we're like, oh, I've been meditating 20 minutes and I'm still not sleepy, or am I? Well, maybe I should meditate a little bit more and I'm still not sleepy, this isn't working, blah blah blah. So the intent is super important. Like when you're out of bed because you can't sleep, hard as it is, the best thing to do is to try to do something, anything that distracts you from not being able to sleep. I totally understand how, and I've experienced this myself, like, you're up like 2:30 a.m. and you know that you want to sleep, you need to sleep, you'll feel better when you're sleeping, but again, trying to do something to make yourself sleep is just going to make it worse. So kind of my overall take here is that if you can apply an acceptance standpoint and be like, okay, I am awake and I feel that I'm not going to fall asleep again, and I have to accept that, as opposed to resignation. Resignation is like I give up, like I can't do anything, like I give up. Acceptance is like just stating the fact that it's 79 degrees outside or it's cloudy outside, and trying to do the same thing, like, okay, I cannot sleep right now, I'm going to explore alternatives, is a good strategy. And by the way, now just something just came to mind, and this is, again, I know I talk about this all the time, but I felt I learned so much from this talk with Nick Wignall in Insomnia, talking Insomnia number 12. Having a game plan is good. So like if I wake up and I can't fall asleep, I'm going to do this. I already have a plan. For what I'm going to do when I wake up. There's not going to be this question now, like, should I do this, should I do that, or should I do this other thing? Nope. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I have a plan. So you wake up and you like go to that kind of nook you prepared with a book, with a comforting blanket, or whatever it is, and you do that. So there's no kind of questioning about what are you going to do if you wake up and can't sleep. So I think we covered that, and I read here again, like, I will work on mindfulness during the day. That's good. Word journal, all that is good. Again, same thing, like mindfulness is great, keeping a journal is good. If the intent is to feel more relaxed and to get some worries out, if the intent becomes to try to produce sleep, not good. And again, like, actually, I said overall acceptance was the big thing. You know what? I take that back. The acceptance is super important, but like big picture, actually, forward motion is the most important thing. Just keep doing what you're doing. Don't look back. Keep moving forward. And I truly believe that you, Frank, are going to get past your insomnia. I don't know when, but if you just move forward, like one day, I believe that you'll be like past it, and you look back on it as a time in your life that is in the past. And then the final thing here, Frank, you're saying, I would gladly work with a CBTi therapist locally, but can't find one. You know what? From what I'm reading here, I think sounds like you're doing good. Of course, like no medical advice here, like you have to decide on your own, but I think you're doing really good, and it's sad that there's so little good advice to be had there. Sleep hygiene, which we know does not work, is what you hear about all the time. All right, let's move on. I'm going into one of my email boxes. I think that, oh yeah, we have Michael and Emmanuel there, and then wasn't there one more I want to comment on before we go to those ones? Oh yeah, Tara has sent me an email, and I've also done a podcast about Tara. I can't remember exactly when, but let's just read this one and we'll go from there. So 2 days ago, Tara writes the following. Hi Daniel, it's Tara again. I was hoping you would give me some insight on sleeping for me at the moment. I believe I have major depression and major anxiety, but my brain has seemed to have followed. Also, I'm 37 weeks pregnant. Now, I'm actually not sure about how well I sleep at night at the moment, but I do wake up around 5 a.m. here. When I wake up in the morning since 3 days ago, I've not felt like I've slept at all. I'm tired all day and feel very lazy and lethargic. I see doctors all the time and I'm just concerned about if there is something wrong. Also, my concentration is still out the window and my brain isn't functioning well at all. Even my memory is crap at the moment. Thanks, Daniel. I just want to know if it's because of sleep or not. You know what? This is a good question, and my general take on this question, and let me pose the question. When somebody's feeling, let's say, lethargic, brain fog, sleepy, tired, is it because you haven't slept or not? Well, I think one thing's clear. Like if we sleep kind of the full amount we typically need, if you sleep deep, like great consolidated sleep for 6 or 7 hours, then we're going to feel better than if we didn't. That's clear. But to what percentage of how you feel during the day is due to insomnia? That's a very important question. Oftentimes, it's never 100%. That's super important. When people start believing that 100% of all the negative emotion they have during the day is because of not sleeping well, that's called putting sleep on a pedestal, where you think that everything is going to just get so much better if I just slept well. There's no question that things are going to get better if you sleep better, right? But if you have sleep on a pedestal like that, if you think that just like everything is going to get so much better if I sleep well, it puts so much pressure on you to sleep well that in itself makes sleeping well impossible. So in light of that, I cannot say, of course, to what degree how you're feeling is it related to sleep or not. But I can say this, that if you're having depression, you're having anxiety, you're super pregnant, then those things definitely can have a big impact on how you feel. And why is this that important to point out? Well, it's again that if you acknowledge that other things can have a really big impact on how you feel, and like you say that, you know what, not sleeping well definitely affects how I sleep, but it's not all of it, then that in itself can really help you sleep better. And you know, I know that's kind of like a kind of diffuse answer, but I think it's the best answer, and I hope you find it helpful, Tara. All right, very good. So we have I think 2 more questions here, and one of them, actually, this email came in just today, I believe. Yeah, 16 hours ago. And it's from Emmanuel. So let's read this. My name is Emmanuel. I'm Brazilian and I'm deeply sorry about my English, but it's been a while since I last used it. But Emmanuel, I have absolutely no problem understanding, actually. Last night I was searching for some videos, news articles or something related to paradoxical insomnia. However, the whole story began when I met my boyfriend and the conditions that I never listened about. He told me about his insomnia, And only this month we found out that he was probably having paradoxical insomnia. But the point is that he feels that he doesn't sleep since he was a little kid. So he had some bad and good ways to treat it, like drugs, bad medicine, yoga therapy, but anything of that was really didn't really work. Anyway, I'm really worried about it because it seems terrible not to feel sleepy. So I'm writing this email, simple way of asking you to help us find some way that you think we should try next, because we have tried literally everything. Thankful for your two videos. It brought hope to us. I'm really, really happy that these videos are bringing hope. And you know what? That's kind of a theme. A lot of times people feel like things have felt hopeless. And sadly, I'm digressing now, but sadly, things are kind of hopeless in the insomnia world. Meaning, not, please don't misunderstand that, what I just said. Not in the sense that you can't sleep better. There's plenty of hope. I believe that almost anyone can sleep better. But there's just so little good information out there. Now, so that said, a couple of things. Paradoxical insomnia, I'm sure you know this now, is when somebody is estimating sleeping much less than they actually sleep. Like the classical example is somebody that's like, I don't sleep at all. Like I don't sleep a wink at all. Like I've gone 2 months without sleeping more than like an hour. And that's kind of rare, but that some people have that. What's truly happening is that you do sleep. Like those people do sleep, but their sleep is so superficial. They have so much hyperarousal, anxiety, that they never go into deep sleep. Sleep is kind of like in and out of superficial sleep, and it literally feels like you haven't slept at all. And by the way, we all have episodes of paradoxical insomnia that are usually brief. That, if, for example, somebody may tell you, "Hey, you're snoring," and you're like, "How can I be snoring? I wasn't even asleep." That's maybe more micro sleep, but if that happens for a longer period of time, that's paradoxical insomnia. Now, paradoxical insomnia is not so much something you have since you were a little kid. In the past, when somebody has had insomnia forever, like I've had insomnia since I was 3 years old, then we used to label that idiopathic insomnia, and I think I still do, but I feel like that that terminology has kind of like disappeared a little bit. But classically, that was called idiopathic insomnia. But here's the thing: all insomnia is really very similar. If it is idiopathic insomnia, paradoxical insomnia, psychophysiological insomnia, it really always is to some degree, and mostly and predominantly, like now I'm having a hard time expressing myself, but hyperarousal is almost always what is driving insomnia. And hyperarousal is kind of like being like having a brain that's in a very like active state, racing mind. You always aware of what's going on. You're hyper aware. That is, in my opinion, like 99% of the time is the root cause behind insomnia, including paradoxical insomnia. And what's important to note here is that a lot of people don't even feel that they're hyperaroused. Some people feel like, I feel okay, I'm not anxious, I just can't sleep. But when you kind of dig down, and you find that those people typically are worried about their sleep. They identify not sleeping as a problem. They are concerned, and there is that kind of hyperarousal going on. So, okay, all this being said now, what should you do? I believe that the best thing to do is to start with the CBTi techniques that this channel is really about. It's the core of what I'm talking about is CBTi. I also add some mindfulness and some things I borrowed from, like the effortless sleep method by Sasha Stevens, which is excellent. But I think the best way to start is by using CBTi. And if you can find somebody locally that is knowledgeable with cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, that's good. If not, you can start here. Like you can start with like the Insomnia Insight episode 1, and check out like the first few, maybe the first, like, I'm just gonna throw a number out there, maybe 10 episodes or something like that, which goes over like the core, the basics. And after that, there's plenty of episodes on paradoxical insomnia. In fact, later this week, maybe tomorrow, I'm gonna go over an email from somebody that had not had long-term insomnia, just 1 year. Well, just 1 year. In the year's a long time, but in the context of your boyfriend having insomnia his whole life. Well, this person, Ellen, had insomnia for about a year, but it was like a lot of it was paradoxical insomnia. Like she estimated sleeping like almost nothing or 2 hours, and she's doing really well now. Just to give you a little bit of hope there. And I always like to talk about my colleague and friend Martin Reed, insomniacoach.com. He has a program. If you have an iPhone, BedTyme with a Y is an app that I'm working on that I think could be helpful for a lot of people. So that those are some resources. But again, just starting with this channel is good. Like there's a lot of information here. Okay, I hope that was helpful. And then finally, we are gonna go over, I think, 2 emails here from Michael, who actually was one of the first people I had got into touch with through this channel. I would say like 8 months ago or so. And Mike was actually a podcast guest in Talking Insomnia, I believe number maybe 2 or 3 or some of the early ones there. So let's jump in here. Hi Daniel, I have a few questions to ask you. Let me give you some background first. Long story short, after just giving up on CBTi, I decided in the last 1.5 weeks to try it yet again. I've switched things up to try to adhere to only 5 basic principles. No diaries, no sleeper, etc. Just follow these 5 items. Go to sleep when my sleep window begins. Wake up when my sleep window ends. Get out of bed when I cannot sleep. Don't sleep during the day, and sleep in bed. I've always realized that during the 4 to 5 different times I've tried to implement CBTi, I never strung together even one night of doing all 5 of these principles together. Always just maybe 2 or 3 of them together, but never all 5. After really examining these 5 principles, I realized that the one of them that is hardest and literally influences the other 4 is sleep in bed. After really examining this principle, I realized it is hard because since junior high, I've always had a TV in the room or living room where I have slept, which goes against sleep hygiene and stimulus control. Since the last 12 to 14 years, I've been sleeping on the couch. As I've told you in the past, I can be really sleepy, but once I hit the bed, I'm wide awake, and it has been glaringly evident in the last 1.5 weeks of trying to re-implement the program. I realized that I'm really trying to stop these 2 very deeply ingrained habits. So I've started to ask myself, should I be trying to cure, for lack of a better word, these 2 deeply ingrained habits at the same time, or maybe try to solve one and then the other? Question for you: what do you think about trying to tackle the sleep in bed first by just going ahead and watching TV, probably via laptop, in bed when I can't sleep? Once I'm able to sleep in bed instead of the couch, then I can tackle being able to sleep in bed without the TV. Right now, what is happening is I get sleepiness cues in the living room and head to the bedroom, no TV in room, which again has not been the case in probably 25 years. Wide awake, and then practice stimulus control. After this first and second time of doing this, finally just kind of give in, put myself in a bad position to fall asleep on the couch and probably get about 2 hours of sleep at night when things are bad. The only other way I can think of to avoid watching TV in bed is to move my sleep window from 11:30 to 5 a.m. to 12 or 12:30 to 5 a.m. I'm just not sure on a typical workday if I would be able to consistently stay up until 12 or 12:30 a.m., especially if I didn't get a lot of sleep before. And if I went to 12:30 a.m., that is only 4.5 hours sleep window, but I'm only averaging about 2 to 3 hours anyway. Overall, I really think the key is sleeping in the bed, but right now, I really don't know how to get my body to do that. When I fall asleep on the couch, I'm watching TV and fall asleep eventually. Thoughts? So I said that I would reply here, and then 1 day ago, there was a follow-up here from Mike. Thanks, Daniel. I just wanted to give you a quick update from when you return, even though I still want your advice on the original question. I came up with a possible solution based on a YouTube interview of Michael Schwartz, Sleep on Cue. I heard a few days ago on Martin Reed's channel people you're familiar with. Anywho, to try to zero in on the sleep in bed pillar, to recap, the issue is when practicing stimulus control, I put myself in a position to fall asleep on couch, put myself in a position to fall asleep on lazy boy, mainly because I'm so fatigued that sitting upright in a chair or floor is almost impossible physically, and when trying to relax enough to go back to sleep. So I researched and found an app called Interval Timer, which allows you to do this. In seconds/minutes, set when your phone, tablet rings or vibrates. I use a very old tablet that isn't connected to email, just for browsing internet or reading books. Set how many times the above repeats. So, at the start of my sleep window, or when I am doing stimulus control on a couch or lazy boy, I start the app and I have had it ring every 3 minutes, started at 5-minute intervals, but lowered it. So I still lay in a way on the couch that I may fall asleep, but I find that this app keeps me from dozing off for extended periods of time. And as of this morning, I've gone 3 days straight of sleeping in bed, although I'm not really sure how much sleep I'm getting right. I shared my simple 5 pillars diary for you in case you want to take a quick look. I really want to get to the point to where the brain literally refuses to sleep anywhere but a bed. Once sleeping in bed becomes normal, and I'm stringing together several weeks of hitting all 5 pillars at night, I will switch over to a more traditional sleep diary. Several things here. I think firstly, I'm very glad to hear that you're motivated and that you come up with these principles, which are all very good. And I understand the question here of like maybe doing, one first and then the other. So the idea was to do like try to get to bed to a point where you're sleeping in bed first, and then tackle the second one of being able to sleep in the bed without a TV. Okay, I think, and Mike, just like email me back with like questions that I'm missing here. But I think what I want to share is kind of like big picture things that I think will be the most helpful. So, overall, like my thoughts there, like, and I think we kind of talked about this before. Sleeping on a couch is, I bet that's not as comfortable sleeping in a bed, and most of us, we just prefer sleeping on a bed. That said, for anyone else out there, if you're like sleeping in a lazy boy or a couch and you're like happy and you're sleeping great, well then maybe you don't need to change that. Okay, but I'm sure, in your case, Mike, I know you thought about that, and I just want to comment on that. So now, when it comes to sleep hygiene, and sleep hygiene, by the way, is when you're like keeping it dark, keeping it cool, avoiding screens and things like that, there's actually no evidence that helps. And I think that's important because the opposite might happen. If somebody is like, saying like, I'm going to really avoid using my phone within an hour of my bedtime, then that can actually become a sleep effort, because what happens is that you're trying to produce sleep by not looking at your phone, and then you're like, why didn't I fall asleep? I was avoiding watching my phone for an hour. Maybe I should go to an hour and a half. Like, you're monitoring how things are working, and when you do that kind of self-monitoring, you're seeing how this or that method is working or not working, then that backfires. That actually makes things worse. So one thing that I thought was like, the TV thing, like if you believe that having a TV on is causing you to have poor sleep quality, then by all means, like, maybe you should lower the volume, maybe you should do something like that. But if you're like, I have so many patients that tell me like I always sleep with the TV on and I sleep great. And if they do, then I'm like, okay, that's good, So if you think this TV is a problem, it's keeping you from sleeping, well then, you should work on that. But if you're like, I've always slept with the TV on, and then that's not, I don't myself identify that as a problem, then maybe it isn't, that's one thing. And then here's the thing. Here's my like overall big picture thing. Is like, as I read these three emails, what seeps through is a desire to solve this insomnia issue once and for all. Listen to podcasts, going on YouTube, trying this app, and having different strategies, planning it, keeping a diary and everything. And that is completely understandable. Like, that comes from a good place. Obviously you're motivated to do something, but again, when we're trying to like solve and figure it out, the more attention it gets, the worse it tends to get. Like, the more we try to figure out why we can't sleep, the more we cannot sleep. The more we wonder why we're not sleeping, the less sleep we get. And one thing that I learned from Nick Wignall was this thing like called set it and forget it. Like, decide upon something. Decide that, for example, you can decide that I'm not going to sleep on my couch at all. I've decided that, and I am going to go to bed not before 11, and I'm going to get up at 5:30 in the morning. And once you've decided upon that, then try to like not question it, not research, not Google, not figure anything out, not tweak it. Just set it and forget it. And then becomes, and this I believe is really important. Once you set it and forget it, the challenge becomes how not to think about sleep at all during the day, which is super hard when you have trouble sleeping. But I think that's super important. So, and how can you do that? Well, in my mind, the only thing and not necessarily the only thing, but what I feel is the best thing is to come up with things that are sleep unrelated that you enjoy. Like, this week, I'm going to cook a new dish every single night. Or this week, I'm going to really try to learn how to play the guitar. Or like, I don't know, like anything. And hold yourself accountable to that. Come up with the daily thing or a weekly thing that you're going to do, and just like hold yourself accountable. And that shifts attention away from sleep. Meanwhile, you're doing the set it and forget it thing. And I believe the less attention sleep gets, the better it gets. So I know I didn't go into like detail here, Mike, but that's because I believe that this is the most helpful answer. And please, email me back with any questions. And so that concludes today's episode. And I believe if nothing else comes up, then tomorrow I have this really, really exciting success story from Ellen. Well, Ellen, I've talked about Ellen before, but this last email from her is one where you can read that this is a person that's really, really gotten past her insomnia, and she's giving me a lot of detail on what she felt was helpful. So hopefully that will be posted tomorrow. And until then, thanks everyone for emailing me questions. Hope this was helpful to everyone, and I will be back again, as mentioned, tomorrow. Until then, stay out of trouble. Bye-bye.